smashing through the lies, destroying narratives, and breaking through the mainstream media programming. This is Tomorrow's America.
Hey, welcome back to Tomorrow's America. My name's Rich Donahue, and I'm here with my co-host, William Donahue. And wow, it feels great to be back, doesn't it, Will?
Oh, yeah. You were gone for a week.
It's been about a week, hasn't it?
Yeah. I did a couple solo shows on a couple of topics if you guys wanted to check them out. But good to have Rich back.
Yep. It's actually been 3 episodes. Will has done the last 2. He did episode 11 and episode 12. I did episode 10. All 3 were very informative. You guys should go and watch them if you haven't already seen them. Today in Tomorrow's America 13, we are going to be talking about the U.S. and Greenland finally completing their deal. There's a lot of stuff going on, especially with the U.S. getting some sovereign territory. NATO is going to move closer to China under tensions with the United States. We've already seen this. It's happened with Canada. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, has gone absolutely insane. So much stuff has came out of that we will talk about, along with the Board of Peace that President Trump has created, kind of to counter the UN. That's the way that I'm seeing it. And also Iran. Iran is still going through these protests. Allegedly, the government says that the protests have stopped, but there's around 300 casualties when it comes to injuries. ICE has been involved in another shooting, and unfortunately someone has died. We will talk about that. And TikTok has officially gone from Chinese control to the United States of America. So let's talk about Greenland first, because this is the main thing that I really was excited about. They have created a framework. So the deal hasn't been done, but they've created the framework of everything that President Trump said. NATO and the United States will be super happy. He said that the United States got everything they want. So depending on if the president did the madman theory and did the art of the deal, which I want Will to go more in depth on, we got some sovereign territory. Wherever we want to build our U.S. bases, that is going to be the U.S. territory. We can build, I believe, as many as we want, but as more stuff comes out, we will learn how many bases there is, if there is a cap, and we also will possibly have full mineral rights to Greenland. So, Will, what is the art of the deal?
The art of the deal, well, before I get into that, I want to say, if you're watching this, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this video. That I just wanted to hit that. So the art of the deal is basically you make an extreme offer. Like I heard Nick Fuentes use the word maximalist. Make these maximalist either threats or offers. Put something big on the trade on the on the opposite end. You lowball really hard, really hard. That way, when the negotiations start, they start from a point that's so extreme that by the time you reach an agreement, you end up getting more than a fair deal for yourself because you put out such a big offer that once you settle, you get more than you probably should in the deal. And one of Trump's tactics that he uses. That's why, something happens and the next day there's massive tariffs or he wants all of Greenland which I think it has been a good strategy to a certain extent. As far as saying that Canada was going to be the 51st state, there's a lot of analysts who say that actually led directly to the election of Mark Carney because people in Canada didn't really take it well. Trump at the time was saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to take you as the 51st state, and our hockey team's going to beat you in the Olympics or whatever hockey game." I don't follow hockey, but I think that irritated a lot of Canadians, and so I think the messaging could be a little better, but. That's essentially what the art of the deal is. So with Greenland, what we're seeing is he's saying, we're not going to defend something we don't own. We want the whole thing, give us the whole country because we do a lot for you and we don't get anything out of the deal. So the least you could do is pay us back and give us Greenland. Now, the deal itself, Rich, you want to explain what deal was made?
Yeah, so basically what they did was they laid out a framework to do a future deal. Off of what President Trump said, he said that the United States got everything they wanted. And he said that NATO should be very happy. This is great for national and international security. This is great for the United States. Number one, we have all of the mineral rights. Allegedly, this is what's in the deal. We have all of the mineral rights that we want. So we're actually going to help out Greenland, that's ran by Denmark, by putting in all of these infrastructure that is going to be able to help them with their mining rights. Now, I don't know if they're going to get a percentage or if the U.S. has a full 100%, but we will be involved in the mineral rights. We also are going to have sovereignty on the land that our bases are on, which is huge. The way that I envisioned it is I think that they would almost cut the country in half. I could see that where the top half is the United States of the Arctic region, and the bottom half can stay in Denmark's control. Denmark will continue to subsidize $400 to $600 million a year to Greenland, so the U.S. doesn't have to put any money involved. Now we are also getting money out of the minerals, and we are going to be getting sovereignty over the bases. So that means that the U.S. has no excuse. We're not just protecting Greenland because of NATO. We're also protecting them because that's where our bases are, and we're actually going to be getting land in return, which the fact that we've been able to get land in 2026 with no war, no anything is just it's a testament to how strong the United States is. It's a really powerful thing, and I think it's great for us. It's a way that we can expand our territory without causing any wars, which is, I mean, that's always ideal. And I think it's great for both sides. Yeah, Europe is going to lose some land, but they get to keep their Greenland that they really want. And Greenland doesn't have to become a United States territory, but we can almost get half the country, which is the top half. And the top half is what we wanted anyways. I mean, we don't really care about the 57,000 people that live there. It doesn't, we don't need them if they don't want to become United States citizens. I mean, always we would accept them, and there's always a future that they could join the United States if something happened to Denmark. But the top half is what we really want, and that's where we're going to put a lot of our bases. Also, this helps with the Russian submarines and Chinese submarines that we lost for a couple of days around that area. These submarines, we can't find them. We don't know where they are. So now that we have these bases in the Arctic, it's going to be huge. So we get land, we get mineral rights, and NATO gets to keep, Greenland as a sovereign territory. I mean, it's a win-win.
Right. I just put on the screen here. The U.S., Ukraine, and Russia have just concluded trilateral peace talks. So this has been the first peace talk where all three parties of the war are sitting down and having a meeting. Obviously, I don't think they came to any conclusion, but it says that there's going to be more peace talks possible next week. So hopefully, they find a way to make peace with each other and that war can be ended.
Wow. Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, if we could end that war and we can start trading with Russia and drop all of the sanctions that we have on Russia and then stop giving money to Ukraine. I know we made the deal with them in Europe, but still stop sending foreign aid to Ukraine. Ukraine can become its own country again where they're not relying on Europe and United States' help. I think that would be a win-win. Also, Russia can be a super strategic partner for the United States, and I think that in the future, the next decade, we should really try to get closer to Russia because they are more aligned with us than Europe is. Europe's actually more aligned with China, just the way that they operate. And we'll get into that. Actually, we could get into that right now where it's NATO that actually has been moving closer to China the more that Trump's presidency has gone on. You see Canada that makes they make their trade deal, and if you could pull up clip one, they make their trade deal with China, and then they double back. They continue and say, all right, well, we're going to continue this trade deal. It doesn't matter what President Trump is saying. President Trump says that we're going to put tariffs on Mark Carney, and they don't care. They're going to continue to move closer to China, along with Europe is going to move closer to China, and they don't care about the United States anymore. The United States is on the out in their eyes. Well, that's why we're not mentioning NATO. They're saying Europe needs to defend itself. Well, let's ally up with Russia. I mean, that's very extreme, and especially from the average view, that's very extreme. You're like, Russia is in the middle of a war with Ukraine. But when you actually look at the history and that we were allies before the Cold War and we fought on the same side, that was obviously communist Russia. But where we're at right now in current geopolitics, it only makes sense. So, yeah, we could play the clip right here.
Okay.
How are you responding to Trump's threats of 100% tariffs?
Well, the first thing is that Canada respects our engagements, our commitments. Il y a des engagements dans l'ACM. We have commitments under CUSMA that not to pursue free trade agreements with non-market economies without prior notification. We have no intention of doing that with China or any other non-market economy. What we've done with China is to rectify some issues that developed in the last couple of years. In many respects, we're going, to use the expression, back to the future with respect to EVs, with respect to agriculture, with respect to fish products and other food products, but with additional protections. So, for example, back in 2023, we didn't have a cap on the number of EVs. We didn't have a requirement for a large proportion of those EVs to be affordable, highly affordable EVs for Canadians. So it's entirely consistent with CUSMA, with our obligations, which we very much respect under CUSMA, and will continue to work that way forward.
So I think that it's kind of funny what he said. I forget, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but I played the clip in my World Economic Forum segment, and it was I forget his name. He said that that Europe is he said that Europe is committing themselves to make being zero carbon emissions by 2030, but they don't make a battery. It seems like Canada is doing the same thing. They're committing themselves to all these electric vehicles, and it's forcing them to be reliant on China. He said he's going to double down on getting EVs and take off the caps on how many they import. And basically, he's signaling that they're just going along. Despite what Trump said, they're just moving closer with China.
Yeah, and he mentioned 2023, they had no caps on the amount of EVs that they would buy at a certain cost, whatever. Well, in 2023, they were averaging 1.8 million cars sold to the United States, where now they're importing anywhere from 40 to 70,000 Chinese electric vehicles. Their economy is going to collapse. I don't foresee the future of the Canadian sovereignty staying, it's a very extreme and bold claim, but you look at how their economy has collapsed. Their employment rate is up to 6.6%. They are plummeting in all of their metrics. When you look at the the top 50 economies, they are ranking really low. They've dropped drastically. They have imported 10 million immigrants over the last 10 years. And they want to double their 30 million population over the next, I think it was 25 to 30 years by just importing immigrants. This place will have no culture. They will not have any Canadians left. And their economy isn't like ours. Like, we can import Chinese goods because we have one of the largest import economies. Well, we have the largest import economy. They have 40 million people. We have 350 million people. And on average, per capita, our metrics are still some of the top in the world, where theirs are some of the bottom. Like, this is a huge mistake from Mark Carney. I think they know that they have an election coming up, so he's trying to double down against Trump, try to get the liberal votes. But what's going to happen when Mark Carney wins the election again, or another liberal candidate? Well, then you look at places like Alberta that are actually going to hold a referendum to secede Canada, and they could actually become the 51st state. So without Alberta, I mean, that's where they get all of their natural minerals, all their natural resources, all of their oil. In Alberta, they have all these restrictions. They have all these restrictions that they can't use any of their stuff because of what you said, because they want to go with zero carbon emissions. Well, they'd have such a beneficial, advantageous position to join the United States because we have less regulations. Adding these regulations are absolutely stupid. So, and I consider Canada as a European nation, even though that they're on North America, just the way that their politics work. You want to have all of these European nations, along with Canada, that are going to be fully reliant on China because they don't want to be involved with the carbon emissions, when China is just blasting carbon emissions with no regulations. So if anything, they should be coming closer to the United States because we still produce and we're bringing back manufacturing, but we have regulations. We have people that will clean, all of their pipes, and we have actual laws against against child labor that the Chinese don't. China does stuff that's so unethical. They do it such in an unethical way. Where the United States, we actually do it with regulations. We do it properly. But you know what? It's all right. Go to China. We don't need NATO. You guys are the ones who need us. We don't need you.
I talked to a coworker of mine who's from Canada, and I said, how do you feel about Carney, the parliamentary system being rigged with your votes? He said, yeah, that's why we haven't had a conservative in 10 years, is because the parliamentary system rigs all the votes. And I asked him about Alberta, and he said, Alberta is the Texas of Canada. That's where all the oil comes from. That's where all the blue-collar people are. That's where a lot of conservatives live. So, Alberta wanting to split off from Canada, in my mind, makes total sense, because these are the people who actually work for the country, and the rest of the country is the democratic, people who want a welfare state and take all the tax money from Alberta, from the people who are pretty much holding up their whole country, with industry and everything. So there's that aspect of Canada. And then the whole thing of them trying to turn and side with China, who's obviously a U.S. adversary, is hilarious to me, because, like I said, the EU sent all their weapons to Ukraine. Even weapons that were in museums, they sent over to go send these museum pieces onto the battlefield in Ukraine. The tanks were just falling apart in the middle of the battlefield. Russia was able to pick them apart easily. Their alliance is nothing without the United States. And right now, so the U.S. is trying to strong arm the EU and NATO for deals like Greenland, for basically letting us focus on our hemisphere. The U.S. is doing a lot of strong arming, but the EU and Canada are trying to strong arm back, and it's actually hilarious, because that'd be like the nerd on the playground trying to take the bully's lunch money. Mm-hmm. It's not going to end well for you, I don't think.
No, definitely not. And then like countries like the UK, they make their own metrics. And Canada, these are two metrics that are truthful, and you can look them up yourself. The UK says they have 14 days of war materials with Russia. Say they went to war with Russia, they have 14 days of materials and ammunition before they would be completely out. 14 days. Like that's 2 weeks of war, and Russia just went to war with Ukraine for over 3 years. Another metric would be Canada says that they would last 3 days to 3 weeks against the United States. I think 3 weeks is a stretch. I think we would blow through them in under a week. But yeah, those are just two metrics that Canada wants to side with China, not the ally that you have the largest border with, the 51st parallel. And then you look at places in Europe that can't even defend themselves, and they just raised it to 5% military spending of their GDP. And now they want to fearmonger us. They have no power. They have no cards, just like Trump would say. NATO is delusional. And if the United States left NATO, they'd be screwed. They would have to create the European Union or the United States of Europe. And honestly, that's what they should do. You can have your own sovereign states, just like how we have, but then have a European elected government, unlike the EU currently. The WEF is another thing that we really want to talk about because there's so much that went on. So I'm going to pass it off to Will. What were some things that you really stood out to you about the WEF? Because I know you made your entire you made an entire episode 12 about the WEF. What's some more stuff that you didn't hit on that?
So this year's WEF was less of a synchronized dance routine where everyone comes in and it's all about climate change. It's all about sustainability goals and all that stuff. This year, it was obviously a polarized event. You had the U.S. coming in saying, we're going to lead the way and show you guys how to be free nations and how to be sovereign and how to be successful and wealthy. And then you had all the EU, European, Canadian WEF members, and they came up and kind of still talked about similar things, their old routine. But they said that they were going to move towards China. You know, it's pretty evident. So you got to watch a lot of the speeches to get a big idea of like what's going on in the world, because these people show up to this thing to try and influence the corporations to carry out their policies and agendas on a global scale. So it has a big downhill effect with what's being said at these meetings. Obviously, there was still some of the regular stuff. You know what, though? There wasn't much talk about climate change, which was always one of their big topics. And I think part of the reason why now is because they're trying to make AI data centers. And, you know, the climate change narrative wouldn't be convenient when it comes to things like data centers, which suck up a ton of water, need a ton of electricity, they run super hot, so they constantly have to have like cooling, you know, which takes a lot of energy. So just kind of a different thing than we've seen before. And obviously their motto this year was the spirit of dialogue. So they know that they're untrustworthy, that the people have deemed them as untrustworthy. Last year, their motto was regaining trust. Now it's the spirit of dialogue. So I think that they know that their relevance is fading and that they have a lot to answer for when it comes to things like COVID and the climate lunacy and all that stuff. I wanted to play a clip for about the World Economic Forum because Ezra Levant, he runs Rebel News, and he found Larry Fink in Davos walking down the street, and he asked him pretty much all the questions that me and you would ask him if we had the chance to sit down with him. Not much of an answer out of it, but I think it's insightful. One, to see his lack of a response and how he thinks that he's better than people. And two, to hear the questions that everyone wants to ask, because they are very important questions that directly affect the world and you at home. You know, these things aren't just meetings. These are policy decision-making meetings for the entire world. So this is the leader of the WEF, Larry Fink, and he gets questioned here.
Do you feel any responsibility for that? Don't touch my mic, mate.
Keep your distance.
Why are your bodyguards such thugs, sir?
Larry, how are you doing this year in the spirit of dialogue? Can we have a conversation this year? Are you up for a conversation this year?
What about the spirit of dialogue, sir? Did you mean it, or was that another lie?
Obviously, since last year, you've been, I guess, promoted to the co-chair. Is that because if you want a job done right, you might as well do it yourself?
Last year you took photos of us, sir. What did you do with those photos?
Why are you so quiet? What does spirit of dialogue actually mean, Larry? Does it mean anything? Is it like pretending you care about the carbon footprint coming here on a private jet?
Why is your bodyguard pushing me into the street, sir?
Just asking you to keep your distance. Excuse me, sir. What's the baby?
Why was the would-be assassin of Donald Trump in one of your corporate videos, sir? Isn't that a bit weird?
Do you feel any responsibility as a Jew in the current climate where there's a rise in anti-Semitism and people blame Jews for everything, saying they want to control the world, and when they need evidence, they point to you? You're the example every anti-Semite gives, and it's hard to fight. Do you feel any responsibility for that? Don't touch my mic, mate.
Keep your distance.
Why are your bodyguards such thugs, sir? Isn't that the true Larry Fink? You have all this BS about conversations and dialogue, but underneath it, you're a thug.
Spirit of dialogue. Spirit of dialogue. This is what it looks like here in Davos.
How do you feel about Donald Trump saying you can no longer buy up residential homes and rent them out for profit? Did you talk to him about that? Do you agree with him that you've been predatory in your pricing for residential houses in America?
Have you consolidated power have you consolidated power at WEF now that you're the co-chair? What did you do with Klaus Schwab? What did he do wrong? The spirit of
So that's Larry Fink. And I like the question they asked him about being the example that a lot of anti-Semites use to prove that Jewish people run the world, or whatever theories that people have. Now, the white reporter in the video, Ezra Levant, he's actually Jewish, and that's his organization asking those questions. So, I mean, you could take the question for what you want, but it's coming from a news organization owned by a Jewish person. He's saying that, you know, people say that Israel or Jewish people run the world, and Larry Fink and BlackRock, the biggest asset management company and now the head of the World Economic Forum, is, whether it's true or not, there's some secret cabal or whatever people think. How does he feel about being a prime piece of evidence? And I think that it's funny because, you know, time and time again, you see, like, Kanye West came out and said that if you talk bad about Jewish people, the Jewish mafia or whatever will shut down your speech and debank you and take your job and all that stuff. And directly after that, he got debanked, got all of his contracts taken, got slandered by the media. And, you know, I'm not saying that these people are right, but time and time again, it's proven that if you talk bad about Israel, if you know, try and come up with some theory about Jewish people, that you will be debanked and called an anti-Semite. There's a passing tons of anti-Semitic laws in the United States where if you say something, it adds a hate crime element to whatever charge. Now, I don't believe in hate crimes. I think that if you shot somebody, whether you yelled the N-word or whether you were talking about making pancakes, it's still murder. So there's a lot of that going on. I don't think that a lot of it's necessary with the anti-Semitic laws. But kind of a side rant that I had. Should we just talk about TikTok now because we're on the topic?
Yeah, we could talk about that. I just want to brief this really quick. So I mean, Klaus Schwab obviously is the was the chairman of the WEF. He handled the COVID situation terribly, and I think that's honestly why he's trying to give it up to Larry Fink, because he knows that he's going to be on the way out one way or the other. The people aren't happy with Klaus Schwab at all, and honestly, I think he's one of the super villains of the world. But that's that's my own opinion. I think you should choose your own, do your own research, but that's mine personally. So he's transitioning to Larry Fink. First of all, Larry Fink, I believe his tag at BlackRock is CEO or COO. But either way, he's a very top level person at BlackRock who owns nearly all of the media, which if you look at what they own, and what they own is the media. When we talk about the mainstream media and why independent journalism is so profound currently, it's because places like BlackRock will own CNN, MSNBC, super liberal posters, New York Times, but then they'll also own Fox News, which is the Republican poster. These people are, and I call him an oligarch because I believe he is an oligarch. These oligarchs want us to fight each other. They don't want us to unite and actually work together. They want us to fight each other. And that's the problem. If we're fighting each other, then we will never actually unite and see the actual problem, which is a higher part of the government. The government is the problem, not the people. People fundamentally are good. Now, I think it was really important that he said spirit of dialogue, but then he didn't respond at all. Another thing that I really liked that you said was that it was a Jewish reporter, which I think is great, because if he wasn't Jewish, they would call this guy a anti-Semite, which is a huge deal. Calling someone an anti-Semite is, and we said this previously, is one of the worst things that is possible. If you get called racist or homophobic or misogynistic, any of those, honestly, it's not a huge deal. Most times, like, you won't lose your job over it, but calling someone an anti-Semite and actually going and talking to their work, you could get them fired. Anti-Semitic has a very large I don't really know how to frame it, but it's very potent. It's still very heated if you get called an anti-Semite and you're proven to be an anti-Semite. But that, since he was Jewish, I think this is a perfect example that Jewish people aren't the ones who people should be mad at. I don't think that, like, it's the Jews run the world. That's a very big conspiracy theory. Zionism is completely separate to Judaism. So Judaism is the religion, and Judaism follows the Torah. But Zionism is the belief that there needs to be a greater Israel. That Zionists believe that Israel should do that, and Zionist oligarchs is the problem. Well, we could always get more in depth with that. But speaking of a Zionist or another oligarch, TikTok has fully transitioned from Chinese control to the United States control. The new CEO is Larry Ellison, who is another Zionist oligarch, in my opinion. You can look at the stuff he says. I actually find it interesting, from Chinese to U.S. control, and now they have a lot more regulations and new terms of service agreements. So now they can, whenever you talk to the AI, they'll have that in their database. So if you talk to it about anything, they're going to have that in the database. They're going to track your location. Those are just two things that they've added to the new terms of service from Chinese to U.S. control. I thought that the whole framing of the TikTok deal was because China was taking our information, but now the United States and Larry Ellison are actually taking a lot more information than they already were, than TikTok already was. So I think that's a huge thing for me, at least. I think it supports the theories too, which is a problem. I mean, that it's just going to cause more anti-Semitic props, which when there's that much hatred of a group of people, then someone like the Austrian painter of Germany could rise to power. That's the problem and radicalization that is currently in today's political climate, is when there's such a hatred of a group of people, stuff like that can happen.
Yeah, it definitely, it'd be anti-Semitic is to go along with these genocides that Israel is involved in, like Gaza. That is anti-Semitic to think that it's okay to allow Israel to do something like that, because that would bring the end to Israel once the world starts hating their policies so much that it translates to where you create the climate necessary for racism to begin. So being against Israel's genocide is actually being pro-Jewish and pro-Israel, because you don't want to see them become the enemy of the world. So I think that's kind of a big deal. With
Yeah, 100%. I think being against the genocide is pro-Semitic. I think it's actually pro-Judaism, because when you see the genocide that Israel is committing in Gaza, and then also how they're involved in the Iranian conflict, that alone is anti-Semitic to support Israel. I think it's anti-Semitic to support the Zionist movement, because it's actually creating so much hatred for the Jewish group of people. And there is a lot of Jewish people who are not involved in the Zionist movement. I know some personally that are great people. I would never talk bad about them, but it's just something where it's like the Zionist movement has such a bad rap, but they don't call it the Zionists. They call it the Jews. You see all this stuff about the Jews. The Jews run the world. The Jews run the U.S. It's not the Jews. The Jews don't run the world. It's the Zionist movement that has the capabilities and that want to. It's not the Jews. We need to in the big 2026. We need to go away from saying the Jews and go towards if you want to say Jewish Zionists or Christian Zionists, because for every one Jewish Zionist, there's 30 Christian Zionists, and they're just as bad. So I think it's the oligarchs and the Zionists that we're talking about, and that's why we always got to be careful with what we say. But yeah, you're 100% right.
That's just one faction of it. So far, we've talked about obviously the Zionists as a threat, but we've also talked about China as a threat. We've talked about the threat of our own allies going against us and hanging us out to dry. We've talked about Russia and their potential place in the world. There's a lot more going on than just Zionism and these things. So, we're not being general. Like, if we cover one topic, that's not everything we believe in. We're talking about a raft of different things. Another big thing is the World Health Organization. We just left the World Health Organization, which it orchestrates global responses to pandemics and things like that, which we don't need someone to tell us, if you're sick, stay away from people or whatever. We could decide that on our own with our own national sovereignty. We have a Health and Human Services Department and all those things in-house. But the problem is that whether it's China, whether it's the Zionists, whether it's Qatar or whatever people are concerned about, the problem is that there's a global group of elites that make all the decisions for the world, carry it out through their own little powers that they have, whether it's Justin Trudeau, who was trained by the World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab said that he was, that he penetrated the cabinets of all these countries. The problem is that there's all these smaller issues. Even wars and things like that are smaller issues than the globalists. The global elites are they are in charge of the corporations. They're in charge of the pandemic responses. They're in charge of militaries. They're in charge of governments. So there's literally a group of global fascist, fascio-communist, however you'd phrase it, elite that run the world. And as long as we fight with each other and dwell on the little issues and never unify against central bankers, globalists, and all these problems, there will never be a resolution to any conflicts. I don't think that if China was on the other side of the world doing whatever they wanted, and we lived in the U.S. and there was no TVs or whatever, hypothetically, no TVs, no cell phones, I don't think that China would ever cross my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that human beings themselves need to be unified, go with our human element, that we're all human beings and we want the best, and then contribute to making a prosperous society no matter what country you're in. And the rising tide raises all ships. So when the tide rises, everyone contributes, all ships rise, the whole world's prosperous, we trade with each other, and that's the real path to peace. And I think that Trump's doing a good job of creating the atmosphere for that, because he's creating a tripolar world where the U.S. worries about our hemisphere, Russia's a superpower over there. Maybe they do take over Europe or whatever, but that's their thing. China has their own hemisphere. And then from then, we can focus on just our own areas. And when someone crosses a line like that, then it's obvious that there's a problem. Right now, there's so many factions and proxy states and puppet states and all these issues that, of course, there's going to be global tensions. It would take about 2 seconds to just restructure how the world, works and put it into a functional area. Obviously, where resources are and who can benefit from it, and then just let the world trade with each other and be at peace. And I think that we're seeing that reorganization. There might be a little pain in the process. It might take 10 years to restructure it. But what's left behind from the World War II era conflicts is losing all of its relevance now. And we need to start thinking forward about these things. And I think Trump's leading us in that direction.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that slowly we have gone away from the World War II era. And finally, I think that we are coming up on the 100-year mark, and we are getting away from letting World War II dictate our geopolitics. I actually feel like we're going through one of the biggest political shifts in recent memory. And in previous episodes, I've made comments about how the older generation has been lost due to misinformation and news. I'm not blaming the older generation at all. This is what they've been gifted. Their parents were involved in World War II. They fought in World War II. This was the generation and the time period that they were involved in. It's just to the point where now those beliefs and views are outdated to the current views and beliefs of the younger generations and even middle-aged generations, where that's what I meant to say, and I wanted to make it sure, and I wanted to clarify that that's what I meant by that comment. Now, when you want to look at biblically what the one world government they're talking about, the one world government would be, and how the end of the world would be close. There's going to be a one world government, and you have to take the mark of the beast, and if not, they're going to kill you. Now, I don't like anything involving the word world, like the World Economic Forum. I don't like that. I don't think that we should even be involved in that. The World Health Organization. Why do we need the World Health Organization to tell us if our kids are healthy or not? Because you look at our country and we're getting pounded with Red 40 and other stuff like seed oils, and then you look at since we've implemented that, the autism rate from before we had those in our foods to now, it's not even comparable. It's in the food, like the food is in, or everything, like the information is in the pudding of what we can do to fix this, and that's what RFK is trying to do. I don't think we need the World Health Organization or the World Economic Forum. We need to stay isolated, and we need to do our own thing and lead by example, like what President Trump is trying to say. I think leading by example is one of the best things we can do because we are the free world. Everyone's against us. Even our allies are against us. We've talked about it today. NATO is against the United States. That we protect them, yet they are against us so hard. They don't like us. It's almost, I like to think of it like this. In fantasy football terms, when you're the 1 seed, you're at the top, everyone's against you. No one wants to make a trade with the 1 seed. We are the number 1 superpower. Everyone's against us. Nobody wants to help out the United States, but we have the power to make them help us out. That's why we need someone like President Trump doing the madman theory, the art of the deal. We need someone that is like, that acts a little crazy and acts on it sometimes. Yeah, you don't think we're being for real? We'll capture Nicolas Maduro. We need that because as the number 1 superpower, you need to have some balls. You need to have a little grit to you. That's what you need. And that's something that I feel like we have under President Trump on the world scale. Now, if you want to talk about something that I really do agree with would be the Board of Peace. That here's a perfect example. Look at these. Is this the video of the liberal posters all saying the same thing?
Well, I wanted to add to what you were saying before you get too far away from it. At the time that these boomer generations were growing up, there was Operation Mockingbird, a CIA project where CIA agents actually were news anchors, and you were being misinformed from the news. The news was spinning a narrative to make you think whatever you wanted, and there wasn't things like X, which thank God Elon Musk got, where now you can actually see the videos of things as they happen in live time. Watching the news, you're not. These aren't journalists. A journalist goes and studies a topic and researches and gets to the bottom of things. These people are handed a script, and if you're watching the mainstream news, you're getting scripted news. So here's just a short clip just to point out what part of the problem is.
Extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is 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 extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is 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 extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah, it is, and it's all a script. They say the same thing. Now that's why I say, like, I don't blame the older generations for believing in it, because this was before the time period that we're in now. First of all, social media has completely changed the way that we receive information, which has been crucial to a mass awakening of younger people against the political system. And then also, that's all they had. When you lived in the pre-phone era, all you had for news was your news channels. Now that's so easy to manipulate when you are a government that you control it. Or like Larry Fink, you're the CEO of BlackRock, you're the top of BlackRock or Vanguard, and you control what people think. These are the oligarchs that we're talking about. They can easily control what people think off of their channels. Now this is perfect because with X, like you said previously, Twitter, X by Elon Musk, you have independent journalisms like Nick Shirley, independent journalists like Nick Shirley that can go out and do their own research, that are completely independent and are just looking to gain popularity by telling the truth. Like us, we are trying to tell the truth and show people the true meaning of journalism, not these fake journalists on these television shows that are getting controlled by oligarchs that, you know, they control their paycheck. These people have to agree with what they say. And like you said, the CIA agents, it's so easy to add a CIA agent as a news broadcaster, because how would anyone know? Now, oh, this is great. Right here, this is the chief of deportations, I believe, Tom Hormond. Holmond. Yep. And Will, I'd like you to go a little in depth with this, because he got a Medal of Honor for deporting double the amount of people under Obama, but under Trump, he's called a Nazi.
So it says here, Barack Obama's ICE chief received an award for 920,000 deportations. Donald Trump's ICE chief was a Nazi. The same person. It's the same person. It's Tom Homan. In 2012, he deported 409,000 people. In 2025, he deported 290,000 people, which is even less than that year. Obama was doing exponentially more deportations than Trump. Yet, when Obama gives him an award and is happy about the deportations, all of the left goes along with it. And then when Trump does it, like the Post says, he's a Nazi, or these are the Gestapo, or whatever the heck they want to say. So, I kind of had a big segment about Minnesota and all that. I think we're going to try and keep this show to an hour. So we might just get right into this shooting clip.
Yeah.
But essentially, so you got the left flipping out. And like we just saw, that video, it's a threat to our democracy. All those people were scripted to say the same thing about something that happened with Donald Trump. So whatever Donald Trump did, the media companies are owned by like 3 people. All of them. Like every Yahoo, MSN, MSNBC, Fox, ABC, CNN, they're all owned by the same people. So they can easily hand down messages like this. And then when you talk to somebody and you say, what do you think about what happened with Trump? They're like, this is extremely threatening to our democracy. They parrot the talking point from the news channels word for word almost every time. So, I had this big segment. We're coming up on an hour. So I just wanted to show the contrast between Tom Homan when Obama had him as the border czar, and now Trump having him as the border czar, and the contrast of how people think about the same person, literally the same person, got an award back then, and now they didn't want to confirm him. They said that he was drinking on the job, which turned out to not be true. They tried to set him up with bribes from FBI agents. Yep. They're attacking this guy, the exact same guy that Obama had, and gave an award to. So it's pretty funny. Now, some of the articles that I had was basically talking about how Tim Walz is releasing violent criminals. The police won't work together with ICE. Things like that. So the problem, ICE is trying to make an arrest here. I want to break this video down for everyone because
you think that we could show this video up on YouTube? That's the one thing I've been debating is nothing, you can't really see anything in it. But it is like, if you like, I don't know. It could be against TOS. It's up to your discretion, though. But like, if we didn't show it, we would just have to put it in description. Like, my whole thing with this show is like, and this is actually a quote from Fuentes. It's like, pick your own side. I think people should pick their own side, and if they agree with us, they should. If they don't, then they don't. But I'm just worried about like the terms of service. Do you think that we would be able to show this?
I found this video. Oh, I found this video on X. but maybe I just won't play it through the gunshot part.
Yeah, just don't play through the gunshot, but then we'll leave this link of the video in the first link in the description. So right now, if you want to watch this video for yourself, it's the first link in the description. But yeah, we can just go through and like talk about the what led up to this conflict.
Okay, so as we could see here, there's an ICE agent at this vehicle, and these two people are coming up to the vehicle. Now, mind you, the ICE was arresting a violent criminal at the time. So a violent criminal, illegal alien was being arrested. These two people come up and start heckling ICE. So, and then this guy in the brown jacket, he's the one that ends up being shot. So I'm just going to play it and pause it and break down some of what I think.
Yep.
I don't know. There was no sound with it, I guess.
Huh.
I thought there was. This video kind of needs to have sound because there's actually, well, I guess it doesn't. So yeah, here, let me try and get some sound.
All right. Yeah, basically my whole viewpoint on this situation is obviously ICE needs to work on not trying to kill people. That's something that obviously everyone supports. Is do we want less deaths? Obviously, that's very obvious. But when it comes to the first situation to now, the first situation, the girl, I mean, she was ramming the ICE officer with her car. That's 100% on her. It was deadly weapon and deadly weapon. This situation is very murky. The water's very murky still. We still don't know everything. He was armed, but it looks like he was disarmed, and then someone said a gun, which led to a shooting. It's very hard, but it doesn't help that the Democrats in power are telling the people to fight and revolt. You want to talk about January 6th and how Trump told them to go and attack the Capitol? Well, what about all these people that are attacking federal agents? And obviously stuff's like this is going to happen. Their lives getting threatened on the daily. It's hard for it to not happen. I mean, obviously you don't have to support it, but it's just something that is going to continue to happen when these people are interfering with investigations and arrests.
Yep. Okay, I think I got it here now.
All right.
Wait, hold on. Right there. So you see the two people, the ICE agents getting in the car. There's a violent criminal in there. These people walk right up to the car. You obviously hear people blowing whistles. This is a situation where they're on high alert. There has been situations where people start a fire outside of an ICE facility so that the ICE agents come out, and then they have people waiting in the bushes to fire shots at the ICE agents. So they're all on high alert. I'm sure that, you know, they could be expecting to get drawn out to where they are walking across the street, and then some lunatic takes off in their car and tries to run them over. So the tensions are high here. These two people walk up to the car. They're blowing the whistle, and at this point, you see the man who ends up getting shot trying to direct traffic. He's standing in the street. So now the officer is giving verbal commands. Hey, back up. You just heard him yell. This guy who was at one point just documenting the situation, you'll see in a second here him get involved where now he's one of three people facing off against the ICE agent.
What the
right? So here they are. They were not listening to the ICE agent. They wouldn't get back. He shoves the lady. Then he pushed the ICE officer. Now is tactic number 2. They tried verbal commands. Now they're trying bear spray, mace, to get these people to walk away from the crime scene of an ongoing investigation and stop obstructing federal agents. So he's employing tactic number 2. I guess at this point, ICE has decided to make an arrest. Okay? You see them target the one guy and say, all right, you don't want to listen. They grab him and they're trying to bring him to the ground.
The fuck, people? The fuck is wrong with you? Honestly.
Now, this is where it's important to pay attention. So you could see this guy. He won't lay flat. They're trying to get him to lay flat on the ground so that they can make an arrest because they've decided that it's gotten to the point they need to make an arrest. So they got the guy on the ground, but he won't get off of all fours and lay flat on his stomach. And pay attention to this officer right here with the gray coat. You can see right there, you could see he was empty-handed. He was grabbing at the ankles. Right here, this officer's pulling out his gun. And this officer, the one who originally was grabbing at the ankles, at this point, he has removed a gun from the small of the man's back. So he removed the gun, but you could hear all the other officers. I'm going to play it again for you. You could hear, I'll play it. Let me play it in slow motion real quick. See right here? This officer is grabbing the ankle. Now he moves to the lower back. You will see right there when he stands up. You see this officer pull his gun, and this officer goes like this and turns the other way, and he's got the guy's gun in his hand, okay? So at this point, that man is disarmed. And somebody is yelling, gun, 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 okay? I don't know how much more of the clip I could really play, because the only thing that happens after this is the police officer shoots the guy and kills him, okay? There's not too much more to see here. So, I want to explain to you why I don't think that the police have any fault in this, okay? There's a situation, there's obstruction, there's resisting arrest, there's high tensions, okay? Now, the cop that's in front, I think he's the one who shot first initially, okay? So the cop that's in front, he's wrestling with the guy, trying to get the guy onto the ground, okay? There's another cop that's removing the pistol. Let me start there. The cop that's removing the pistol is doing his job. He's disarming the guy, okay? The cop that is yelling, gun, 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 he's doing his job because he saw a gun. And the cop that's in front wrestling with the guy is doing his job trying to apprehend this suspect, okay? So, now, police in their training are trained to rely on each other, okay? That's where you hear the word thin blue line, or, you know, there's some positives and some negatives to this training method as far as civilian perspective goes. But the officer, when he yells gun, 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 it is reasonable for another officer to rely on his coworker and then execute deadly force to protect his fellow officers, okay? Even if there wasn't a gun at all. Gun, gun, gun! Boom. That guy is justified because of their training. He's justified to make the shooting. Now, where the responsibility lies, the guy who disarmed him was doing his job. The guy who yelled, gun, 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 was doing his job. The guy who made the shot was doing his job, okay? So I don't know really where the fault lies, but the problem is, had that man turned around when he was told to leave the crime scene, he would still be alive today, okay? So we got agitators. The second problem is that had the police been there and had Tim Walz allowed ICE to coordinate with police, local police, there wouldn't be this situation because the police would have cordoned off the area and made a safe environment for ICE to execute their lawful duties. And third, obviously, you're in a high-tension wrestling match scramble with a person who turned out to be armed. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot going on. There's many aspects to it. And unfortunately, if you roll the dice 100 times, you know, there's a probability of it landing on whatever number you want so many times. This isn't the number we want. This is the number we don't want. We don't want ICE shooting people and killing people, but you know, it is bound to happen because of the environment in Minnesota right now, and because of the way that this whole thing has been cooked up. So
yeah. Minnesota's a mess. And it really stems from their political leaders telling their civilians to fight back against ICE and all this stuff. It's an absolute wreck. I mean, everything that's going on with Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, honestly, that whole situation, they all need to be out of power because they're just causing more deaths. And honestly, you said you don't know who to put the blame on. I put it on the politicians because everything that the politicians are doing is against the American people. It's against the people of America that are actually are living in America. They're getting told what to do, and it's the wrong information. You need to comply with federal officers. When have we ever said don't comply with federal officers? It doesn't make any sense.
None at all. If the FBI was carrying out a targeted arrest on a terrorist, a domestic terrorist, somebody from the United States, and you happen to disagree with it, one, that makes you a terrorist now if you go out and obstruct them. And two, while you're aiding and abetting a terrorist, you're an accomplice to terrorism if you try and help them. And two, does that justify you just going out and trying to run them over or you know? So with this whole thing, obviously, I don't fault ICE. Honestly, even if it was the fault of one officer, maybe Minnesota will, you know, try and put the guy up for murder charges or whatever. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but this is not a reflection of the entire agency in itself, no matter what the outcome is. And I don't think that these people are responsible or need to be held responsible, but that's not a reflection of the whole agency. That's a reflection of Tim Walz not working with ICE and creating these situations where ICE has to literally go. There's only, what is it? I forget. There's only so many ICE agents, but there's three times the protesters.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. I think it's you know, it's always falls back on the politicians. I think everything that they're telling our civilians is messed up and wrong. So
there's only 20,000 ICE agents in the world, and in the United States, and like you said, we have a 350 million person population. If 3% of those people stood up against ICE, they outnumber ICE by a massive amount. So
Yeah.
that's probably all that we have today, unless you have anything else, Rich.
I don't think so. Except I just think that you need to look into, as today's Sunday, do something for Jesus. You know, if it's going to church, reading your Bible. He's honestly a great way to base your life around. Probably the best way to base your life around. First of all, the laws of your nation and the laws of Jesus Christ, and then other than that, if you follow those two things, you'll have a pretty good life. That's at least in my opinion. I mean, you follow the laws of Christianity and the laws of the United States, you won't have problems like that. You won't be in a situation like that. But you know, people got to make their own decisions. But I think obviously we'll continue to preach the word of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Christ is King. We end the show, every show, by saying that. Like we said, please like and share the show. And I want to go out with this song. Rich, I know you got to go. I'm going to go out with this song, and this song is called Common Sense. I had AI do the lyrics, do the vocals of the song. And I think it's a pretty good song. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope that you have a great Sunday and that, like Richard said, that you go out and you try and be the hands, feet, or eyes. You try and be whatever member of the body of Christ that you are, and help to build the kingdom of God.
And also stay warm.
Yeah, stay warm. Richard's going to be doing a special segment here about the weather and all that, so stay tuned for that also.
The song is modeled after Common Sense by Thomas Paine. We're at a point where everything is insane. First things first, let's cut to the chase. Common sense ain't common, and that's a mistake. These days you're either left wing or right winger, so that's what they say. In reality, the Overton window is all out of place. To get back on track, we gotta get some things straight. Most importantly, being in power is a privilege. How long would you let someone who's incompetent be in charge of the village? Being anti-war should be an automatic principle. The best wars are the ones we never got into. Thank God for the Bill of Rights, it's astounding. But little by little, government find a way around it. By fear to strip away our rights, there's a new crisis every day and no end in sight. Government should work for their own people, you think it's a given. I hate to break it to you, that's not the world we live in. Everyone has the right to defend themselves. I'm not a terrorist, you're punishing me for somebody else. Speaking of terrorists, we gotta have a border. They're attacking our cities and creating disorder. A lot of things are crimes without a victim. There's overreach in government, and this is a symptom. On the contrary, there's a whole bunch of victims with no justice. It's a backward system. Everyone deserves representation. Everyone is equal. The government should be transparent. Everything should be see-through. I don't care how they phrase it, I'm just gonna say it. They spy on us in our homes and on all of our phones. We just want to be left alone. Social issues aren't in the government's purview. Let people handle what we've got to work through. The free exchange of ideas can get us out of predicaments. Most people don't agree with somebody's ignorance. Accountability is a definite must. No one ever gets arrested and it's breaking our trust. Taxes should always be considered a plan B. The system shouldn't rely on taking from me. People pay weekly, but there's barely a benefit. It feels like we get nothing at the end of it. Our economy, we could do a lot with it. But no matter what, there's never any profit. There should be systems in place to protect our health. The system in place adds to drug companies' wealth. Everything else is just an aside. We need to come together and be unified. This is common sense, these are obvious choices. All rational people need to use their voices.